Hi, how you going? Welcome back to the channel. Been a while since I've seen you. I think it's been October, I think, was the last video. Yeah, the last 3 months of the year got pretty hectic. Life got in the way, let's just say that. Got a new job, so that kept me busy. And as you can see, well, you can clearly see with the evidence, I have a camera now. With production value's gone up a little bit. Say a little bit because we've only got one light still. So baby steps, we're getting there. The reason why I'm here tonight, sitting in front of you in a very dimly lit room, is I promised you guys a certain video last year, and I'm going to give that to you now. This is going to be the first part of a trilogy of videos. Most of you have been following me on Instagram or on Letterboxd would understand or would probably know what one of the videos will be in that trilogy. It's been a long time coming. It usually comes out at a certain time of the year, but as I've said on my socials, I wanted to make a little bit more time for that video. So that'll come out soon enough, but we're going to start with this part, and we're going to talk about hellish things, bumps in the night, ghouls, zombies, ghosts, the paranormal, horror. Specifically, we're going to talk about every horror film that I watched in 2023. Now, I watched 19, looking at the list there. Not every film that I watched there was released in 2023. There are some from like 90s, early 2000s, and it's just literally every single horror film that I did see. Now, 19 is not a huge number, and if you guys have been following me for a while, you would know that I was not huge into horror. I've only just been getting into horror the last 5 years or so, and this is a pretty big number for me in terms of a year. Now, I used to do these Horror October challenges where I would probably watch 19 or 18 in a month, but there just wasn't a lot of... I didn't really watch a lot of horror last year, unfortunately. And before you jump into the comments and say it, I did not watch one Evil Lurks. I just didn't have time. I didn't get to do it. So that's why we don't have 20. Instead, we're left with a very uneven number. It's an odd number. 19. So 19 films we have here. I'm going to start from my least liked to my most liked. Okay, like my number one horror film of the year. And we're going to do it gauntlet style, talk about them pretty briefly. And we're going to start with 19. And that is It's a Wonderful Knife. This is a play on It's a Wonderful Life. It's another one of those films that we've been getting lately that have to do with like time travel, time manipulation, parallel universe kind of shit. And this is like another one on our list that we have here. And this is, like I said, a play on It's a Wonderful Life. The only reason I watched this movie is because that the premise sounded interesting, but we also had Joel McHale in it as well. Justin Long also was in it. I'm a big fan of Justin Long and anything he does. I think he chooses very interesting projects. I mean, the evidence being Barbarian last year, especially the character that he played in that. And he plays another despicable character in this, although a lot more cartoonish, a lot less evil, a bit more cartoonish. You could say he's evil still in this film, but he's a bit more cartoonish. And I enjoyed him in the film, but everything else like surrounding the film and the plot of the movie, it's just really, I found it really kind of stupid. And I didn't really connect to much of any of the characters. Joel McHale, he plays like the father character in the film, and he doesn't really get to do a lot in the movie. Now, I wasn't expecting like a huge avant-garde performance from Joel, but I was expecting a little bit more from him and his character. I don't know, the movie itself, the look of it is just a little bland, in my opinion. That's why it's sitting at the bottom of the list. And you can tell it takes a lot of elements from Scream, especially the slasher genre that it's pulling from and the formula that it's doing. But I just don't think it does anything new with that. I like the progressiveness of the film, but I just don't think it really does anything new with what it is actually taking from. So that's why it's actually at the bottom. And then, yeah, there's a point in the film when the cinematography changes and the look of the film changes, and it all just came off very... It's supposed to be cold, yes, I know, but it came off dull, and it actually was like really lifeless. And look, if that was the point of the movie, sure. Didn't really sit well with me, and yeah. Moving on to number 18, we have Identity, which is James Mangold's film from 2003. This movie is a bit of a cult classic. People are, raving about it, especially the last few years. I've seen a lot more people talking about this movie. and everything inside of it. It's interesting, like especially the whole mystery angle of it and the characters that we get. I do like a film that takes place in one location, where in this place it takes place in a motel or a series of motel rooms. My problem with the film though is that I think I've seen just too many movies, and now that I've seen films that have done this, I think in a better style and a better way, I couldn't really detach from that, and it could really ruin my enjoyment of the film. You know, there were some cool scenes. I liked the look of the movie, but the end, it kind of just ends, and then you're like, what? And then the actual ending happens. There's another thing that happens in the end, and then I don't know, for some reason it really saved the movie for me. I don't know if I have a like it on a letterbox, but wouldn't watch it again, I don't think. You know, I do see why I got a cult classic. I think it would this kind of twist that you get in the film would have blown a lot of people's minds in 2003, but a person in 2023 or now 2024 watching this, I don't think it's going to do a lot for them. Maybe like certain tastes, people with certain tastes, but for this individual, didn't really do a lot for me. That's why it's sitting at 18. At 17, I've got Totally Killer. This was a movie that was a bit of a was a little bit in the zeitgeist last year when it came out around Halloween time, around October, late September. And this stars Ken Shipka from the Sabrina Chronicles and Mad Men, if you guys know her from Mad Men. She plays a character named Jamie, who she gets stuck in a time machine, takes her back to the night where I think her mum was murdered, and she's trying to find out who the killer is because it's happening in her current days as well. So that's why she's going back and finding it, and maybe finding out and cracking the mystery. And this is another one of those slasher films that revolves around this time manipulation thing, time travel, parallel universe, like I said before. But again, I just didn't really find it that effective. Kenan Shipka is fine. I didn't think she was like groundbreaking or phenomenal, but I thought she was fine. The plot was okay. The time travel was cool. But the thing that really drags it down for me, and if you guys have been watching this channel, for a while now, you would know that I do not like a certain type of writing. And when it comes to a certain type of joke writing as well. And that is this, and I don't want to call it this Gen Z stuff, but this movie really takes a Gen Z approach to its joke writing. Biggest rant about it was from Werewolves Within from a few years ago. It doesn't really feel like this is coming from the character. It just feels like it's coming from the writer themselves. Like it's like a mouthpiece for the writer. And there's just a lot of moments throughout this movie where Jamie will be back in like the 80s and she'll see something that's problematic nowadays, that for us nowadays, and then she'll comment on it and say how that's problematic or something bad, and then it just happens a lot, and that just keeps being the joke of the film. And then after a while, you can just predict when Jamie's going to do it. You can just say, okay, she's going to see this and she's going to say that joke, and then like clockwork, it does happen again. And it just got really tired after a while, and I didn't really enjoy it. The only scene that really worked for me joke wise was the DNA scene with Randall Park's character. I think he's like the sheriff of the movie. He has this line about DNA, which I did find was pretty funny and pretty clever. But other than that, pretty forgettable film. Wasn't really on the same page as everyone else when this came out. Still am not. Quite forgettable. Don't think I'll watch it again. 16, I've got Mithrigan. Now, I did talk about this, I think, in my film diary video that I did last year, but I'll quickly just summarize my words here. I prefer the unrated cut over the PG cut because, like I said in my Letterboxd review, and like I said in that video, I don't like when the kills are off screen. I think you can do off-screen kills and make it effective, but the way they approached it in this film is the same way that you see in a lot of these PG-13 horror films. And it just doesn't really do anything for me. That's why I much prefer the unrated cut, but even then, I still think that could have used a lot more blood and a lot more fun of its premise. And I just think that Jared Johnston, if he's going to make Mithrigan 2.0, that I think he could lean into that more in the sequel. But don't have to listen to me. You can do whatever you want, but I think that could make for a much more enjoyable sequel, in my opinion, and make Mithrigan much more of an icon. It's an enjoyable film, but didn't really do anything for me. Number 15, I've got Fall. I saw the trailer for this one, and I was a little bit intrigued by it, and finally watched it late last year. I will say it might have been a bit more effective in the cinema, because I do like the way that Scott, the director, approaches the the sense of, being up so high. And I've got to give credit to his cinematographer as well for trying to capturing that feeling successfully, I might add. But everything else revolving around it, it's the script, it's the characters that's the problem. It always seems to be when a movie falls apart, it's the core of the film, right? The script and the characters are the core of your film, and when that starts falling apart, the enjoyment factor goes away. And you can appreciate everything technical wise about a film, just like you can with this one. But you need to have compelling characters, and you need to have a good script. And while I do think there are some parts that shine throughout the film, I just don't think it really has all that much to it. When we talk about the iPhone battery, because that's insane. Like no person has that much iPhone battery. I thought this was like an Apple commercial at some points, because I was like, there is no fucking way that this person's iPhone battery is still going after they've been up there for like days. So like, I don't know. I don't know. There's suspension of disbelief, and then there's this character's iPhone battery, and that's just insane to me. A little too much to ask, if you ask me. 14, I've got A Haunting in Venice. Now, I watched this because I do like the previous two that Kenneth Branagh has done, The Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. And as much as I don't really love Death on the Nile, and I don't love Murder on the Express, but I'm a sucker for murder mysteries, detective stories. So of course I'm going to watch it, and of course I'm still entertained by it and thrilled by it. This one has the approach of making it a horror film and setting it in Venice in a gothic mansion, and that gave it extra points to me, and I think it is my favorite Kenneth Branagh outing so far. I watched this on Halloween. I was trying to like find a scary movie or horror movie to round off the month with, and I didn't want anything too dreadful because I had quite a shit month. So I thought this was the movie to end the month with. Disney just dropped it on Halloween, so I was like, oh, perfect, fuck yes. Very moody atmosphere, moody score. Dude loves using his wide lens. Dude fucking loves using that wide lens. Like, it is used so much throughout this movie. You can almost like just guess. It's like, oh, wow. He's loving that. And look, there are some moments that did get me. And look, I'm easy to get. I'm easy to scare. So not much of a compliment, but I will say it struck the tone well. It struck the mood well. And it is my favorite, easily my favorite of the Kenneth Branagh Henry Poirot outings. 13, Renfield. I believe I also did talk about this in my film diary video that I did. And like I said, I enjoyed the film. Nicolas Cage's performance is great. Nicholas Holt's always good to see. But I will stand by picking Vampire Money over Na 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 over that for that needle drop they did towards the end of the film. How do you not choose Vampire Money for that scene? How? Right, 12, Evil Dead Rise. I only just watched Evil Dead this year as well, and it should be on the list. I don't know why it's not there. That would have been the 20th film, but it's too late for that now. I fucked up. So Evil Dead Rise, this is directed by Lee Cronin, produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, and it's instead of being set in the woods, it's set in a high-rise apartment with a family. Who gets possessed is Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland, and my god, Alyssa Sutherland easily is my favorite Deadite now. Her performance is horrific. If I could, she would be nominated. Her performance is one of the best performances I'd seen from someone last year. Not just a woman, last year of anyone. It was so riveting and so scary and just gross and vicious, and fuck, she just nailed it, man. She fucking nailed it. Yeah, some really tense sequences, great violence, the great goofy violence that Evil Dead is known for. It's like it married the elements of the Evil Dead remake on the 13 remake, because that one I have seen, the 2013 remake, and the first one, and the second one, and then just put them together, and you get Evil Dead Rise. There's a lot of promotion around that cheese grater. Wasn't as impactful as I thought it could be. Maybe I'm just a sick fuck and wanted more violence in this really violent movie. But I still think that, come on, that cheese grater could have done something more, could have done something more with that cheese grater. Everything else, I love the end. I love what happened during the end. And my god, the best title sequence I think I saw last year. And what a way to call your title that and have it be as effective as that. I thought it blew me away. I loved the title reveal of this movie, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you see the film. So check out Evil Dead Rise. I thought it was a good entry in the series, and I'm interested to see where Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell do take it this franchise next. 11, I've got The Blackening. I actually saw this. I think it was. Did I say this the night after the night of Talk to Me? Because I went and saw Talk to Me on July 14th, and then I think my friend went home, and then I was like, I need something to cheer me out because that was nasty. And I chucked on The Blackening, and it did cheer me up. It was a really, really funny movie. A little bit of Ready or Not, because they're playing a game, but a lot more goofier and sillier. And the actors, I've got to praise all the actors because all the deliveries is what makes all the jokes work in this movie, and the things that they say. I may not understand all of these jokes, but the ones I did really landed, and I laughed my ass off during this movie. I thought it was incredibly funny. One of the favorite comedies of last year. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I still think you should give it a go. It's just a really, really fun time, especially with mates. So finally, we've made it to the top 10 horror films of the year. And starting at 10 is a little movie I don't think a lot of people did see when it came out, but I've caught it on streaming because I don't think we even got a theatrical release here in Australia. But I'm talking about Cobweb, directed by Samuel Bowden. This one stars Anthony Starr, Lizzie Kaplan, Woody Norman as this kid who believes that there's a monster in the walls, and his parents. Wow. Thank you for that. His parents may or may not believe him, and that's it. That's the story. That's the mystery. I actually really, really liked this movie. Not all of it came together for me. But I really, really liked the way it was filmed. It really felt like they were playing with the perspective of a child, of Woody, and how small he is in the movie. I noticed throughout, the house is a very strange house. The table that they sit at is really enormous, really large for some reason. It's a really great shot that reinforces that kind of a child's bedtime story aspect of the movie, where Woody's character is hearing his parents argue under the stairs. See the silhouettes of his parents arguing to each other, but the way the shot is framed is they're kind of it's like they're looming over him. They're like these shadowy presences. It's not quite sure what their intentions are, and it's all a little mysterious. And I really, really liked the framing of that shot and how it was all set up. Talking about the parents, talking about Anthony Starr and Lizzie Kaplan, they give some very weird performances in this movie, especially Anthony Starr. Now we know Anthony. He likes playing the weirdos. If you've seen The Boys, you know what I'm talking about. But in this movie, he was genuinely terrifying. I think he's got really great eyes for it. I think they do really help him out. But Lizzie, I think as well, really played this unhinged mother. She's also she's crazy. She's delusional, but she's also a little bit. It's sinister. It's really sinister undertones to both of their performances. Lizzie's mostly, but Anthony's as well, because all he needs is the eyes really, and just a little bit of the voice register going down, and thorough of the eyebrows, and that's all you need from Anthony. But Lizzie, I thought, was one of the strongest parts of the movie. I loved how it looked. I just think that parts of the movie didn't really work for me, especially the third act. I thought it was a little rushed, and I just wish the movie was a little longer. I think this movie is only 80 minutes, so I do think it needs a little bit longer to flesh out maybe that third act and make it a bit more effective, in my opinion. So yeah. Number 9, I've got The Faculty from 1998. Robert Rodriguez directed this one. It stars Elijah Wood in one of his earliest roles. It's also got Josh Hartnett, Jordana Brewster, Claire Duvall, and it's about these high school students. If you haven't seen it, it's about these high school students that discover that aliens have taken over their world, but they first discover it through their high school, and they've got to try and figure out a way out of it. The biggest praise I can have for this film is that it just fucking goes. It goes and it doesn't stop. Very fun. Very, very fun movie. And Robert Rodriguez has always been good at doing that. He's always been good at keeping pace and just making things happen constantly. But not in a disorienting way or anything like that. It's just really fun and very entertaining. Robert Patrick, I think, gives a great performance as well as one of the teachers that eventually gets taken over by one of the aliens. And I thought he was very, very funny in the movie. And then where this movie goes is like, honestly, it's something I didn't expect, but it was really, really cool to see it. But yeah, if you haven't seen The Faculty, do yourself a favor. And I also thought the soundtrack was great as well in it. You get to see some early performances of these great actors that we know nowadays. And it's always fun watching that, I think. Number 8, I've got Thanksgiving. This is Eli Ruff's latest outing. It's about this killer that's going around. He's like dressed as a pilgrim. And he's going around and brutally murdering people. You know, a slasher. And wow, really, really enjoyed this one. I think it's one of Eli Roth's best movies. Some of the kills are actually quite gruesome and quite brutal. It's a predictable film. You can see where it's going. But man, there is a certain kill that takes place during a parade, which I thought was great. I liked the freezer kill that we saw in the trailer, but we see a bit more of that obviously in the movie. The opening sequence I thought was great. I thought there was some really creative kills there. It's very like, I don't know what the word is, what the feel is, but it was really hard hitting. Like the kills were like brutal. There's a certain thing that happens in the third act, which I thought was just fucking terrifying. And not terrifying, I was like quaking in my boots, but like, I'm just like, if that actually happened to me, that would be fucked. Shit, man. I had a lot of fun with this one. And if he wants to make another one, this is based off a trailer from one of the Grindhouse features that he did with Quentin Tarantino. And look, if he wants to make another one based off of one of the other trailers, fucking let him. If they're as good as this movie, let Eli Roth cook, please. Really enjoyed this one. Gonna add this one to the list of my holiday horror movies. Number 7, I've got a little film that came out, I think, around January, like at the beginning of the year last year. Played in festivals in 2022, and it went straight to Peacock around January. And I think not a lot of people saw this one. I didn't really see a lot of people talking about it, other than like, you know, certain movie critics that I follow and YouTubers that I follow. But I didn't really see much of the general audience talk about this one, or the general crowd talking about this one. And man, I thought it was great. And yeah, I'm talking about Sick. Look, it's another slasher, but I really liked the premise of the movie. It takes place during COVID. It's about two friends that stay in this cabin, and yeah, it takes place during the pandemic. And it's a slasher set during the pandemic, and I think that's a good enough premise, and I think it delivers on that premise with a really effective, I think, slasher. The characters are likable. There's some cool chase sequences. There's some really nice fight sequences with some really nice whip pan camera work, especially during that first sequence. And there's a really cool visual gag that really got me. That has to do with the premise and has to do with like the themes of the movie. That really got me. I wasn't sure how I felt about the ending. I think it could have ended in a different way, or perhaps a bit more of an oomph to it. But I still really enjoyed it. I would definitely watch it again. I just haven't really watched it again. But, you know, I'd definitely watch this one again. And if you haven't seen Sick, go out there, go on Peacock, or wherever you can find it. Seek it out, watch it, and get your eyes on it. I think it was one of the more effective horror films I saw last year. And number 6, this is not planned or anything like that, but I've only just noticed it here on the list, like now. This is like generally how I feel about the movie and where it sits. But you know, I'm talking about Scream 6. I want to start by talking about like the Scream franchise, because Scream franchise is, as I've gotten into horror in the last 5 years or so, like I've mentioned before, the Scream franchise quickly became one of my favorite horror franchises, nay, one of my favorite just franchises in general, because they're just all really, really fun and some really memorable characters. Sidney Prescott, I think, is still the best final girl that we have. The first Scream movie is, I think, now one of my favorite movies ever. And it's endlessly quotable. All the characters are great, and it's some really cool sequences. Wes Craven's directing. Sidney fucking Prescott is where she came from. That's where she started, baby, and that's why we love the movie. The sequels afterwards, they're good. They're enjoyable. Scream 4, I think, is my favorite. But when Scream 5 came out, I wasn't really that hot on it. It's a bit of a lukewarm reaction. It was funny, my reaction to that movie, given the fact that it's directed by Radio Silence, who did Radionaut, one of my favorite movies from the year that came out. And when I heard they were doing the Scream franchise, I was a little excited. I was just like, oh, this could be cool. If they're, after seeing what they did with Radionaut, I'd be interested to see what they do with this franchise. And bringing back Gail Weathers, bringing back Sidney Prescott, Dewey, and bringing in a bunch of new characters as well, like Sam, Tara, Chad, Mindy, and Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding, Melissa Barrera, and Jenna Ortega did a pretty good job, I think, in that film. I just didn't think it was as effective as I think it could have been. And I've come around on Scream 5, or just Scream if you want to call it. But I still think it sits in like the lower tier of where my rankings of Scream movies are. But I don't have that thing to say about Scream 6, because I fucking love Scream 6. I think it has the best, other than the first movie, I think it has the best opening title sequence. There were some really, really tense sequences. The apartment high-rise sequence with the ladder, I thought was really well executed. I love the train sequence with Mindy and all of the killers. And because it takes place on Halloween, there's Halloween parties going on. There's all these different references and homages to different horror movies, and some of even their horror movies as well. Like we saw a Grace from Ready or Not. I think she was in the trailer anyway, but it was great to spot her again in the film. And the only thing I didn't really like, and this is the thing I don't like about, this is easily my least favorite aspect of the Scream movies, is the killer reveal at the end. Bar, Stu, and Billy from the first one. And maybe Jill. I think I like Jill as a killer from 4. But they're just never the most effective part of the movie. They're really the most... I mean, they're predictable as well. But they're just not as effective as they could be. They're easily the weakest part of the movie. And yeah, this reveal was fine. I do love the brutal violence in this movie, and them taking it up a notch violence wise with this one. This Ghostface being a lot more brutal. Some of the violence in this movie was just sickening. Easily the most brutal Scream movie. Do like how everyone gets their comeuppance in the end as well, but can we please just stop it with the Billy visions? I don't need them. I didn't like them in 5, and I don't like it here. Why are we still getting these Billy visions with Sam? I don't understand it. They're not good, so just stop them. Stop it. That all out of the way. Really, really enjoyed Scream 6. I've seen it a few times now. One of the upper echelon Scream films, I think. I'm really scared about Scream 7. It really sucks that we lost Melissa Barrera, because as much as people don't really like Sam, she didn't really gel with me in the 5th one, but she really came around in the 6th one, and I ended up really, really liking Sam. And that made me like her more in retrospect, going to check out 5 again. So I really ended up loving like the core 4 that we get in these new films. And Melissa Barrera, I think, gives a much better performance in this one rather than performance in 5. And so does Jenna Ortega as well. I think their relationship with their characters is much more developed and better, I think, in 6. And if we're going to give Melissa like another chance again, I think she would have shined well in Scream 7. It also sucked that we lost Radio Silence for directors. Then we got Christopher Landon. Now he's out. I don't know, man. I'm scared for Scream 7. I don't know what's going to happen to it. Just kill it. I think if we can't get the core 4 back, what is the point? Just kill it. Kill the franchise. Come back in 10 years and we'll try again. My number 5 is something I really didn't expect to be here, but that is Saw X. This is the 10th film, if you couldn't tell by the X, in the Saw franchise, and easily one of the best. This takes place between the first and the second Saw film. It's about John Kramer trying to get a surgery for this tumor that he has in his brain, and then those people fuck him over, and then he runs them through the experiments, and we get our Saw film. It's easily the best looking Saw as well. Like I said, guys, the main thing about this movie is Tobin Bell's performance. This is easily his best performance I've seen him ever do. He gives it his all as John Kramer in this movie. It'd be really cool to see him again in Saw 11. Or Saw XI, or whatever the fuck they're going to call it. But we're supposedly getting that in September this year as well. So maybe we'll see a return. Maybe this one will take place between 2 and 3, maybe. This one is pretty much Saw 1.5. And I think that's pretty cool. A pretty cool way to take the story. As a Saw movie goes, it has some pretty violent kills. And in preparation for this movie, I ended up watching most of the Saw films. I didn't get through 5 and 6. Yeah, I can easily say that this is like top 3 Saw movies for me. I still think the first one is my favorite. And I really like the third one. But this one, probably 3. I'd say this one's probably the third one. And now you've got me interested in the next entry in the franchise. So hopefully they can do the same thing again. They can have the same magic again. I don't know who's going to direct the 11th one, but it's probably going to be Kevin. I assume it's going to be Kevin again. So yeah, looking forward to that next one. And number 4 is another movie from the 90s, and that is The Exorcist 3. I've been hearing a lot of things about this movie over the last few years or so. It's been getting a lot of resurgence. I remember seeing it in like the best scenes of horror, or whatever it was called. I think it was like 101 best scenes in horror on Shudder, when they have all these directors come in and they talk about, you know, their favorite scenes and why it's so effective, and, you know, they pick a scene. And I think this was one of them. And this is well known for having one of the best jump scares in film. And I will say, yes, that jump scare is incredible. But I first want to talk about what is my favorite part of this movie, and that is easily George C. Scott as Bill Kinderman. His character is so well realized, so well developed. His friendship with the priest as well, his priest friend, also is just really, really great. But it really is George C. Scott's performance that brings us home, because Kinderman on the page is an interesting character. But the beauty of making a movie is bringing that character from the page to the screen, bringing them alive with a really great performance. And the way George C. Scott plays Kinderman is astounding and fascinating, and I love it. There is a scene where he is being interrogated, or like kind of mocked by this nurse, and he's asking where certain information is, and like you can picture the script. And you can like read it. It's like, you know, nurse mocks Kinderman, or nurse mocks Bill. You know, dialogue space, dialogue character. Okay, line. It is not in the file. It is not. You know, Bill gets frustrated, or Kinderman gets frustrated with the nurse. The way George C. Scott performs that line, delivers that line, is never going to leave my head. It's akin to Pierce Brosnan's performance in, I think it's Targan or Taran. I forget what the movie's called. I'll put it there. This character comes into the scene, and then this woman comes into the scene, and then she asks him a question, and I forget what the line is, but the line from Pierce Brosnan is like, "Well, maybe you shouldn't be living here." And I don't even want to replicate it, because you just got to go on YouTube and check it out. Just go fucking watch it and check it out. And then also check out the way George C. Scott delivers this line. It is not in the file. It is not. What? Like, yes. When I'm talking about just bringing this script to life, like, you need someone like George C. Scott to fucking do this. You know, you need the guy from The Changeling to fucking come in here and clean house with deliveries and dialogue lines, like with dialogue lines and deliveries at a performance like this. Absolutely loved it. But now let's talk about that jump scare. The thing about the scare is, it's not the scare itself that is scary. It's everything around it. It's the context surrounding that scene. And look, you can go online and watch that sequence out of context and still probably be scared. But the most effective way, I think, to experience this scare is to watch this movie and to see how this plays out, because I don't even want to spoil it for you. It is years and years and years and years and years old, but I think, like a lot of people that want to let you have this experience, I'm going to respect that and let you just watch this scene. You can go on YouTube and watch it if you want, but just watch this movie, because everything around this movie as well, everything around the scare as well, is really, really great. And it's directed by the guy who wrote the fucking book in the first place, William Peter Blatty. And his direction is much different from Friedkin's, but it still makes for a very, very effective entry in this, I guess, franchise, because we have Exorcist Believer that came out in last year, which I didn't see, by the way. I just wasn't interested in that. I don't care if you bring in old characters back. I just wasn't really interested in that at all. I don't know why they were doing that, but money. Oh, wow. Universal spent so much on those rides. Holy fuck. But thing is, Exorcist 3 is actually a really, really good movie. Not as good as the original, I'm going to say, but still, I think, like I said before, an effective entry in the franchise, and one of the better ones. The only thing I don't like about it is that third act when it gets a little bit too Marvel filmy. It's just a big third act battle sequence that I don't think needs to be there. I think there could have been a different ending to that, and it's just a shame that was there, but it didn't really take away my enjoyment from the movie. If you have not seen it, I think check it out. All right, top 3, let's do this. It's getting late, I've got to work in the morning. Number 3 is a film that I saw only once last year, and I still have only seen it once, but for some reason the images, the scenes, the characters, the dialogue, how certain lines are said, and just the overall feel of the movie has stayed with me ever since I watched it way back in, I think it was March I watched it last year. And that is Brandon Cronenberg's follow-up to his film Possessor from 2019, Infinity Pool. This stars Alexander Skarsgård, Mia Goth, and it's about a writer named James he's having a bit of writer's block, so he goes to an island getaway with his wife, I think it's his wife, and he gets captured by these people, and they're led by their charismatic, I wouldn't really call her a leader, but he meets this charismatic woman on the island, played by Mia Goth. He soon follows their group and gets up to a lot of shenanigans on the island. And I'm not going to say where this film goes. It gets pretty crazy. It's Brandon Cronenberg, so it's going to get crazy. If you have seen Possessor, you kind of understand, or you predict where you think this movie's going to go. And look, it goes in all those directions. But there are still some sequences throughout that I think will still get you. And I think the thing that has stuck with me from this movie, it's not just like the plot, not all the twists and everything like that. They're fun, but there wasn't really a thing that stuck with me that really stayed under my skin. It's this theme, this element of watching yourself be murdered, watching yourself be killed, but like brutally killed. And just feeling the brutality of that, and it has to be such a visceral feeling to understand that, and to examine that, and just to watch it with your own eyes. Like, watch yourself that you've seen in the mirror 100 million times, 100,000 times, just get brutally murdered, and you see everything. I think there's a lot to say about that theme in itself, and I think that Brandon Cronenberg could have explored that theme a bit more. One of my biggest things was, I think that I could have taken much more away from this movie. I'm not saying that it stuck with me, and perhaps it did have some power, but I still think much more could have been gleaned from this central theme here of killing oneself, not having consequences, shedding your old skin, Yeah, I still think some things could have been explored there in terms of that. But what I still got, I really enjoyed. Brandon Cronenberg continues to be a very visually interesting director. He gets great performances out of his actors, especially Mia Goth in this one. More so like he did with Christopher Abbott in his first movie and Andrea Riseborough in his first movie. He gets a great performance out of Mia Goth in this one. But yeah, Infinity Pool, I'm still kind of, in the middle for it, but I mean, there's a reason why it's number 3. It really does stay with you. Now, number 2 and my number 1, I did play around with these ones, and I did still think number 1 is definitely my number 1, but number 2 is sometimes getting really close ever since I watched it in July, and you can probably tell by that release that I'm talking about one of the biggest films that everyone was talking about last year. But also one of the most surprising, one of the most pleasantly surprising, but also one of the most downright nasty, mean-spirited horror movie I saw last year. I'm not talking about When Evil Lurks. I'm talking about Talk to Me. Yeah, everything's been said about this movie. I don't want to repeat anyone else's. I've got my own words on this as well that I've said, that I've expressed. But I'll just reiterate, it's a really great horror film. A great debut from Denny and Michael. And I cannot wait to see what they do with the sequel. I didn't think we needed a sequel, but I'll still be interested to see what they can do with it and what they can develop in this universe. But and like I said, and like we always say of horror performances like these ones, Sophia Wilde should be recognized so much more. So unsettling, so heartbreaking, upsetting, and just so raw. Like, such a great performance. Zoe Kravitz as well. Joe Bird. My God, what a great performance. And I think the fact that it takes place in Adelaide, in Australia, it's so local, made it more... Oh my fucking God. Fuck off. Makes it that much more horrifying and more close to... Because it's so close to home, it feels more scary. My friend and I were pretty shook by the end of the movie, and like I said, I want to watch the blackening after this to calm myself down. And I've seen this now 2 times, and it was better on the second watch. And like I said, I can't wait to see what they do with the rest of this universe, because as a standalone film, it's really good. But if they have some really cool ideas for this extended universe that they're talking about with this world that they have built, who am I to even have the slightest of doubts after having such an effective debut? And finally, friends, we have reached number 1. My number 1 horror film of the year is also from the 90s. There's a trend. And that has hands down got to be the movie that just absolutely rocked me last year, really got under my skin. Like, I could not stop thinking about this fucking thing after I'd seen it. I'm hesitant to watch it again because of how affected I was by this movie. This filmmaker always makes such provocative movies that really just do things to you. And I really want to check out more of his filmography, but I'm also hesitant. I'm just like, what if this man gets under my skin again? I'm, of course, talking about Kiyoshi Kurosawa, and I'm, of course, talking about Cure. Wow. Holy fucking shit. This movie has so many scenes that stay throughout you. It has one of the most terrifying cuts I've ever seen in a horror film in everything I've ever seen. And just like the film and its approach, I'm going to be as quite minimal with this review or with this recommendation as possible. I'm just going to tell you about a scene in the film. And it takes place in a doctor's office. One of the characters just has a glass of water. Because this film plays a lot on hypnosis, all this character does is makes this nurse look at this water, and all he does is just knock this glass of water over. And when I tell you how affected I was, and how absolutely terrified I was and paralyzed I was watching this particular scene, and I'm stuttering. The fucking trance I was under watching this scene just goes to show you how simple but extremely effective Kiyoshi Kurosawa's directing is with this movie. I mean, he made these, in my opinion, the scariest sequence I've ever seen in Pulse, or Kyra, if you want to call it that as well, with that walking lady. And you fucking know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that scene. But I mentioned a cut, and this movie has, I think, the most terrifying cut I've seen ever in a horror film. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And if you have not seen this film, do yourself a goddamn favor and seek this one out. It's not as, now, you know, I'm probably getting a bit hyperbolic. It's not as like scary. It's not that general scariness that you get from movies. It's not that. There's no jump scares. It's just really unsettling, and it really gets under your skin. And if you're in the shop, what the fuck does that mean? If you're in the mood, you're in the town. If you're in the mood for that kind of horror, and if you love that horror, and if that horror does something to you, you know, really gets under your skin, really just digs its way under there, and puts images in your brain that you're never going to scrape out ever again, but also that you're so happy that you have those images there, then Cure is the movie to watch. Please check out Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. Pulse is probably still the scariest movie I've seen, but Cure just does something different, man. And it's extremely good at doing it. Take a deep breath, everyone, because we've come to the end. We have come to the end of the video. Check out all these movies, all 19 of them. If you want to, Like I said, do check out Cure. Check out any of the top 5. Really, I think they're really great movies. You can always watch these movies, make your own opinions, and get back to me about them. Talk about them with me. I'm always happy to discuss that. And yeah, I hope you like the new set and the new look of things. I'm really excited for what's to come. This is a part 1 of a trilogy of videos that I'll be doing to kick off this year. And I'm really excited to bring you the rest of that. So check out my Instagram, check out my letterbox. That'll be all in the description below. That's it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.